Hello, everybody.
Jesus Christ. I forgot that I reopened. I forgot that I reopened Google Chrome recently, and suddenly I clicked on a YouTube tab, and it just blasted my ears with the sound of Markiplier's voice, and it scared the hell out of me. Anyway, all right, you ready to go?
Sure.
All right, let's see how long this episode is. I don't know if because I don't know if it's gonna be a full hour. I just don't.
I don't either.
Like
It
I don't
might.
like I don't feel dead anymore, but I do like I'm still like energy is still like. Good evening and welcome to Nerd Rage episode 178. It's we're recording this a little earlier than we normally would, but then again we recorded the last one a little late. But whatever. But really, yes, we're recording this a little earlier than we normally would, but that's okay because we have lives or something. I don't know if we want to call that living.
I don't have life, but I mean, OC does. He at least has a job, and
You have a
like,
job too.
right.
According to that logic, you have a life.
yeah, but
And that's exactly what I was referencing.
your job is why we're recording early.
Yeah, it's pretty much scheduling. So, here we are. Another Nerd Rage.
Another day, another nerd rage.
We're both kind of tired. Well, actually, you already know that because I definitely inserted that part before I did the intro bit. I
Yeah,
definitely insert that part. I know you, future me. I know what you're doing over there in the editing booth.
wow.
You don't have a booth.
You talk to future you.
I'm
You
sorry.
talk-
I'm sorry.
yeah.
I'm sorry, future me. You don't have an editing booth. You just have an editing program.
Mhm.
I just wanted to straight face that
Wondering,
one.
like, if I should just sit back and let you have this show with yourself.
No,
Keep talking to yourself.
no. I've suffered through enough of those shows. Anyway,
It would be like, your YouTube gaming channel, except without the games.
I see a dog.
A dog. Oh, yes. So you do. Tiny dog is here. He wants to be part of things.
You usually don't get to see him so clearly.
Well, he was on top of the just
Yeah.
like a huge beanbag
I
thing.
could
So
I could see that. So that was weird.
he jumped up there because he's like this tall. He's a 6-pound chihuahua. So yeah, it's a little easy to overlook him. As
Yeah.
we find out when he's, like right under our feet and we suddenly have to move.
All right. Anyway, so there are things to discuss today. As much as we may have just spent like 2-3 minutes just meandering completely, and like
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going to it's not going to be a long show. So maybe I should get the dog to jump back up on the thing again.
But there has been a thing going on in Charlottesville, Virginia.
Yes.
Like today, the day we are recording.
Mhm.
But it's been well. Let me put it this way. I've been looking at Twitter pretty much all day. Twitter's been very tiring, and for some reason though, I just couldn't peel myself away. But my timeline has been so full of crap from stupid people. So many hot takes.
Oh, gosh.
I don't understand why I've even been looking at the damn timeline.
Well, I mean, it's like, oh, geez. There's always hot takes because everyone on either side is looking for someone to blame, and they need that someone to be, like that caricature that they can demonize that will justify their hatred moving forward. And that's really what it is. It's like these two just extremes and schools of hate that keep
Mm-hmm.
looking at each other and saying, aha, you see that? This is why we hate them.
Mm-hmm. Now, this is where I'll definitely say it's a both sides problem.
Oh, yeah.
But I will also add to that, the left does it worse. Always. Because there's always more of them, they're always more virulent, they're always more dangerous, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. There are just examples all over the country for several years now of leftist protests that are in fact riots. Innocent people getting just beat up in the streets because they look different.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I was just looking at your post, but I had posted something a little earlier.
I think I saw that. Would you care to share with the class?
Yes, I will.
I don't know what that voice was. You can tell I'm tired because I just broke into that voice without any thought about
Well, I called it Charlotte, whatever. It's, you know what I'm talking about. I wasn't going to get into specifics because I don't have all the facts. And I think that's one thing that's really ruining discourse in the country is, the fact that everyone takes to social media immediately and has, their
the hottest take.
The hottest take of all the takes. Yes. And of course, it's always from that place of how do we blame them? Because it's always us and them. I said, I think there's a lot of hate on both sides of the political divide. It's being justified by the hate it opposes, which is creating a vortex of hate that sucks everything into it. Having said that, I was going to share a comment that I made in another post. I'm over the mobs in the streets protesting.
Mm-hmm.
If I were in that, it would get my anxiety just through the roof. It would definitely make me feel like I needed to take action if my kids were with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what the heck happened to law and order. I don't know why the mobs are in the streets and why mobs in the streets and riots are being excused as protests. It's just a domino effect of lawlessness. And I said, I'm honestly wondering where the rule of law went. Now, someone responded to that.
Mm-hmm.
This is anecdotal, and this is kind of the point that I was getting at. A young neighbor of mine was on a bus a couple months ago, headed to meet some friends for a movie. The bus was stopped at an intersection a half mile from the theater by a Black Lives Matter protest. She missed the first 20 minutes of the movie. She could have walked the last few blocks and made it on time, but she's white and was afraid to get off the bus and enter that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
He said, despite her left-leaning tendencies and sympathy for their cause, she came away liking them less. I can't imagine any of the rank and file having a similar experience and coming away sympathetic to the cause, whatever it may be. Families and plans, sometimes emergencies, and are generally in no mood to be prevented from reaching their respective destinations.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, this has been ongoing for years now. And Obama was really sort of pivotal in getting this hate rolling along because, he was from his bully pulpit, speaking out against law enforcement in a lot of these cases. And then you start to see cities, really limiting law enforcement and what they can do during these protests.
Right.
With the assumption that, people need to have their say, let them get this off their chest and but then you have, stuff like, and it's just, the extremes are really trying to spark a civil war, like an all-out war, and everyone else is just getting caught up in it.
Now, again, you want me to be honest? It's the left doing it. I don't think it's the extremes on both sides, because the extreme on the right is so small and insignificant. I mean, the left is.
And I mean, it's legitimate in this particular case today because they were protesting.
And I won't deny that.
There was a counter protest. For decades, the left has been trying to pin this tiny neo-Nazi group to the political right as a whole. They have been trying to make them one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why every single time there's an election, the leftist media and journalists always want to ask whoever the Republican nominee is, what are your thoughts about David Duke?
Yeah, sure.
They bring it up every single election.
Or nowadays, do you denounce Richard Spencer?
Are you going to,
Who the hell he is.
And you cannot use strong enough language to distance yourself from it, because they'll keep bringing it back up. They won't let go. And so, the media has convinced people on the left, mainly because people on the right know that that's not a part of the really conservatism or even republicanism.
The country in general.
Right. But yeah. So, they've convinced people on the left, though, that these things are, intertwined in a way that it's just, there's no distinguishing one from the other.
Yep.
And so, they feel very justified in their rage and in their hatred because, that's a hateful group. And everyone agrees that's a hateful group. Nazis are a hateful group. But at the same time, there's this assumption that anyone right of center is a part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
And so, nothing is too small for them to get really wound up and angry over it. And then that anger just sort of spills out into action.
Yep. Doggy butt. Anyway.
Yeah, and then everybody acts like a dog butt. Yes. There you go.
And then everyone acts like... What is he doing?
He's chasing the cats.
Okay.
He was fussing at the cats, and now he's chasing them. Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you were saying that now everyone something or other...
No, it's hatefulness. And the thing is, whenever Black Lives Matter or Antifa would protest, despite the evidence of, the results of those protests, the riots, the, damaged property, etc., the left would always act like, no, that's just individuals. Those are just extremists in the group. It's not the group. It's not the ideology. You can't pin that on us.
Yeah. And then, of course, you turn it right around, and they always try to pin the actions of a deranged few on the entirety of the right or the Republican Party.
Every time. It is such hypocrisy. Which brings us to your point that you made in your, what was it, Chuckle Puck post.
I mean, when you put it that way, now it just sounds ridiculous. But yeah, that is the point I'm making, because I'm quite frankly, I'm really fed up with all this. Like, especially like I'm talking, I was talking earlier about Twitter, and how I spend all the time on Twitter, and the fact of the matter is, a lot of the people I follow that play Final Fantasy XIV also happen to be very liberal in their politics. Unfortunately, this tends to mean that they tweet stupid crap all the time that I simply don't agree with. And generally speaking, that would normally be kind of tolerable, but it's been utterly intolerable since Donald Trump was elected.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's really weird to me seeing so many tweets where people are basically trying to say, where people, gonna try that again, where people are trying to, basically act like they're the underdog and they're the victim, and they are being oppressed. Like, I literally saw the word oppressed being used, by the way, with regards to the Charlottesville thing. Regarding this Charlottesville conflict, because frankly it is. 3 people have died, I believe. And the thing is that get that dog to shut up. No kidding.
He's being oppressed, okay? Gee.
But they want so badly to be the oppressors. They the oppressors. They are the oppressors, but they want so badly to be the oppressed. They want to be the victim, but they are not. And it's like we've been living this reality our entire lives. People like us, conservatives. We've been living this reality our entire lives. This reality that they aren't really. They control everything.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, it's Mike and I have had some subsequent conversations about, media and Hollywood and all that. But it's like we were discussing in that earlier Nerd Rage, talking about crowdfunding for Black Tide Rising, and just the larger conversation in general of how media and Hollywood and the entertainment industry really, they'll blacklist conservatives, and conservatives can't get their projects off the ground if they're really open with their views. And a lot of what Hollywood is putting out
Mm-hmm.
is just abject propaganda. I mean, it's stuff designed to make people sort of fall into that mindset that everyone on the right is this huge racist, homophobic bigot,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone on the left is like this, an admirable underdog that's just trying to beat the bully and all this kind of stuff. And I mean, so it's frustrating to not have something that actually represents your, you or the larger group that you associate with in a real way. The only thing that even comes close, even remotely close, are like the satires that pretty much make a caricature of all sides.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sad. I mean, you think about something like Parks and Rec and Ron Swanson.
Right.
I mean, that's as close as you're going to get to a sort of right of center character that's not just a huge poopy head, really.
Mm-hmm. I like you said poopy head. Maybe I said shut the fuck earlier.
Brady said shut the fuck, so.
It's like, wait, what? Why bother?
Usually the kids are here when I'm doing this, so I have to say poopy head. Although they can always watch it online, so.
Yeah, and also the fact that I'm sure they've heard you swear before.
Not really, no. I'm actually really good about that.
Well, I'm assuming that you don't rattle off profanity, like 1, 2, 3 all the time. I'm just saying that I'm sure you've let it slip occasionally. Especially on Skype calls.
Seasoning here and there.
But yeah. This is all really exhausting. And it's like I kind of wonder really what like a lot of these like leftists really think like the end game to all of this is. Like are they like legitimately trying to agitate for like a civil war? Like what is their ultimate goal?
Well, I think their goal is to silence anyone who opposes the leftist ideology or agenda.
The problem is that surely they can see that that's not working anymore.
I don't know that they can. I mean, because think about it. Over, the last few decades, they have successfully silenced a lot of right-wing views. They have successfully redefined words,
Right.
actually in the dictionary, redefined words to support their sort of agenda and how, people view things. They've taken over the entertainment industry. They've taken over academia. So they're really driving the whole sort of discussion concerning social justice and politics. So I they actually have been kind of successful in their attempts to silence other people. So I don't think necessarily that they can't see that it isn't working, or that it isn't working.
Or it's more like they don't realize that it's like clearly they're not observing that, like there's a huge subset of the American population is mad as hell, is not going to take it anymore. And I'm actually reminded of something I watched earlier today, because SF Debris, which I've mentioned many times on this show, he has been spending the entire summer with the Star Trek reviews reviewing the final story arc of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And he's now on the finale. And he was talking about how, because in the finale of Deep Space Nine, basically the Cardassians rebel against the Dominion because the Dominion's been oppressing them. After joining the Dominion because they feared the Alpha Quadrant powers, in particular the Klingons, they realized they chose very poorly, and so they rebel against the Dominion. Unfortunately, the female changeling reacts because the founders, the changelings, they are not accustomed to people rising up against them. They're not accustomed to people, to people like trying to fight back against their totalitarian rule. And so when the Cardassians do that, rather than thinking, maybe I've made a terrible mistake, the female changeling doubles down and starts glassing Cardassian cities. In the series finale. And I actually feel like that's actually quite relevant here in its own way. I mean, no one's glassing anyone yet, but but the thing is that, I think it's relevant because I feel like the left is taking the exact same track, in that they're just doubling down on what has always worked, rather than realizing that it may not work anymore.
Well, I hope it doesn't work. So my brother and I have discussed this, and for it's probably 15 years or so now, we've been saying, the leftist has been doing this for a while. So, we've been saying that it's inevitable that eventually they're going to get some backlash. And, what's considered the alt-right, which is, in effect, that very small group of sort of neo-Nazi sympathizers.
Right.
This is the initial backlash. But, I mean, just like I was talking about, that anecdote that was on my post on Facebook, just your average citizen who doesn't identify with either of these extremes, and who's getting a little bit tired, even though they have sympathy for leftists, because leftists do constantly put it out there that they are the victims. People are beginning to get a bit frustrated with it, and I think that you're going to see a little more pushback, just from, not necessarily from another extreme, but just from, the average person who's tired of it, and who, wants to be able to get where they're going and not have to stop for your huge hissy fit in the middle of the road. And, who is tired of, their friends and family essentially being called hate mongers because they don't agree 100% with what someone else says, is the way to be. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this has been a long time coming, really,
Hmm.
the clash that we're seeing now. And it is because no matter how much leftists claim to be the victims, they're the ones driving the discussion. They're the ones behind the media. They're the ones behind academia. And, you can only claim victimhood for so long while you're out in the streets breaking things and throwing fits.
Hmm. Well, who knows? Maybe North Korea will put an end to all of this with a tactical nuclear warhead that hits Guam. Wait a minute.
Uh, you know,
I don't
it's
really
just
want to talk about that, to be honest, but
North Korea. What if California seceded and then North Korea blew them up? I mean, it's just, these are the kind of ridiculous things that are happening in politics right now. And it's funny to me, like a visual metaphor of our discussion was actually playing out behind me is the fight between cats and dogs.
how clever of you. Anyway, all right. So let's move on from that because
Moving right along.
I only have so much energy for that tonight. And quite frankly, it's because there's some very, very good news out there today. Because today, 81, the British Star Wars fan who has been creating the revisited edits of the Star Wars movies, released The Empire Strikes Back Revisited today, 7 years in the making. He finally got it done.
Nice.
And I couldn't be happier because he did such a phenomenal job with A New Hope Revisited that, that it would be almost a shame for him not to release Empire Revisited. And he finally has. And I've gotten 45 minutes into the movie. So far, so good. He removed some of the unnecessary fluff, that, like George Lucas added in with the special edition, like the extra Wampa scenes. He just removed those because, especially in the case of the Wampa, less was more, generally speaking. The more you saw of it, the less intimidating it became, etc.
Yeah.
That's a principle that tends to apply to cinema. If you don't have the best practical effects, or if you get too close of a look at a special effect, that it becomes less convincing.
Hmm.
Hence, less is more. Pretty important horror, in fact. Anyway, but yeah, and I'm going to link the Facebook note down below because because it's been uploaded to Mega and at least one other file sharing site. It's been uploaded to 9 parts though because it's very, very large. It's a very, very large file. It's the whole movie after all. But it's man, it's pretty amazing. The Battle of Hoth sequence in particular, he does a lot of additions and he adds a lot of elements to it and so forth. Like things that really should have been added to the original movie. Not the original movie. Well, I should say in the special edition. Remember when George Lucas did that in '97?
Yeah.
In the special editions, he added a lot of stuff that just didn't need to be there.
Oh yeah.
In a new
So a lot of CGI.
In A New Hope, for example, he added in all those extra CGI scenes to Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
In The Empire Strikes Back, of course, we got the Wampa, and he changed a few things that caused continuity errors, like people looking out the wrong windows in a Star Destroyer. And it's like, why would you be looking there? Shouldn't you be at the front of the? Never mind. And then, of course, in Return of the Jedi, he added in that little scene. Well, actually, this was in the 2004 DVD release where he ends in the Naboo scene at the end. But he also adds in all those extra celebration scenes at the end, which there's nothing wrong with those actually. But there was actually the Jedi Rocks sequence. A very fun musical number. Don't get me wrong. It's just it didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're like, well, why do you need to fix a whole bunch of other things in the movies? Like, say, the Battle of Yavin. The Battle of Yavin has so little going on in it, actually. If you look at the effects, the effects are great. Bear in mind, ILM did a great job being freshly created company. It does an excellent job making those special effects. But it's like, but there should be a lot more Rebel ships and Imperial TIE fighters flying around. There should be more lasers and everything. Not so much that you make the scene too crowded, but enough that it's like you fill it out a little. It looks a little more full, a little more complete. There's a little more going on. And that's the kind of thing 81 does. In addition to fixing things like continuity errors, like people looking at the wrong windows in Star Destroyers, which happens in The Empire Strikes Back, because in the original cut, I think an Imperial captain, when the first transport's escaping Hoth, the Imperial captain's looking at the front window, because of course he is. That's the direction that Star Destroyer is facing. But in the special edition, for some ridiculous reason, it was switched to a side window, which wouldn't be facing Hoth. So 81 changes that back to make sense. Same thing with Darth Vader at the end of the movie, where he's looking out of a side window, and this is actually in the original cut too. He's looking out a side window on the Executor as the Millennium Falcon's trying to escape. 81 switches it so that Vader's looking out the front viewport, since that would again make a little more sense.
Yeah.
And then he does other things, like for some reason, like Lucasfilm, when it made like the DVD versions in 2004, for some reason it put like a really like noticeable color filter on everything. So everything has like a noticeable blue tint in the 2004 DVD releases. He fixes that color correction so that everything looks fine again. And it's like small tweaks like that, to audio tweaks, to the big things, where in the Battle of Hoth he adds an AT-STs to escort the Imperial walkers. And he does actually a couple of clever things with them over the course of the battle. In fact, I'll probably show you one of those things right now.
Echo Station 5-7. We're on our way. All right, boys, keep tight now.
Luke, I have no approach vector. I'm not set.
Steady, Dak. Attack pattern Delta.
Go now.
All right, coming in. Javi, you still with me?
Again, you're talking about Star Wars, and I've got behind me my pillows.
And it's the best movie for it, too. Anyway.
So, you know, the star of this nerd rage is what's happening behind me.
Go figure, right? But anyway, so I can't wait to get to the rest of it, because I know he does a couple of other things, you know, because he does other things too, like he makes like the lightsabers consistent. Like the lightsaber effects in the original trilogy were actually really inconsistent. They look very different from Episode 4 compared to 5, and then 6 just looks like a more refined version of 5 usually. But what he does is that he takes the lightsaber effects of the prequels and uses them as the baseline for lightsaber effects throughout the series. Mm-hmm. You know, it does the same thing with lasers. You know, the lasers in the prequels.
I need that, like, in DVD format. I just...
I'm not sure how you're gonna... Well, it's pretty easy to get A New Hope Revisited. I'm sure you can find a torrent somewhere. And then, of course, Empire is now... Empire, there's a note on the Revisited site that you can check out. I shared it earlier, so... That will definitely... you know, you can definitely check that out, because it's really cool. Like, and sometimes it just seems like the changes just seem so minor, but it's like... It's one of those things where it's like, because it's so minor, you wonder why Lucasfilm never did it in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I wondered, you know, why did they do that? And
you know, little fixes, little improvements, little details all over the place.
And
Anyway.
I was less concerned with what they didn't do than what they did. Because it was just jarring.
Anyway. Alright. Do we have anything else to talk about tonight? Or,
I don't know.
like, do you have anything? Because that's everything I got on the docket, you know. Charlottesville, Star Wars, totally related topics, you know.
Oh, totally. Yeah. You know, the fight between good and evil.
But wow.
Cats and dogs and Star Wars. I don't think I have anything. I want to read something. I haven't read anything lately. I don't know if you want to do the thing where we either watch or read something and then discuss it.
Because I did have this idea, basically, that we would watch or read something new or old. It could be something old, too, something we're already familiar with. And then just discuss it for a little bit. Maybe not at length, per se, but we could just discuss it for, like 5-10 minutes or so. And just maybe break it down a little. We haven't done that yet, of course, but we haven't really set up for that. I mean, even though I did propose that we could talk about, like, specific elements of the Lord of the Rings, for instance,
I feel like I need to reread that.
I need my mother to send that over, actually. But then again, I reread it recently, so that's not really so much of a problem.
I want to reread that. I want to reread the Chronicles of Narnia, and I've got several books that I haven't started or that I'm in the middle of. I read The Fifth Wave. I'm on The Infinite Sea, and I want to read Monster Hunters International. There's just so much.
I've been reading an anthology of short stories collected by Hitchcock. They're not bad, actually. Lots of interesting little twists in them, and lots of little interesting twists in the stories. I like them. Some of them are varying quality, but there's some stories where you're just like, oh, that is clever author, whoever you are. And besides that, I'm also
like that kind of stuff. Just short stories, and suspense.
Since I don't have a lot of books on me, I've been reading a lot of books that Bug has, so it's kind of what it's been so far. However, I did ask my mother to get me the most recent Shannara trilogy for my birthday, because we haven't read because I haven't read that yet. We haven't read that yet, actually, me and my mother, because my mother loves Shannara books and she got me into it, because I got into Shannara about the same time that I read The Lord of the Rings. That's when I started reading more avidly and so forth. And so The Defenders of Shannara has been the most recent trilogy, and then Terry Brooks is going to be wrapping up actually the chronological story of the Shannara series with his next and final series. Well, not final necessarily. He may write more stories, but this is going to be less chronologically, called The Fall of Shannara. And I think the first book is slated to come out next month or in October. I'm looking forward to that because he's a very, very good writer. I feel like it's kind of like the last trilogy, the trilogy before the current one. I mean, I feel like his writing started to kind of waver a little. It started to feel a tiny bit repetitive, and I couldn't help but notice almost, how do we describe it? Kind of like a liberalization of the writing, almost.
Yeah.
That, you notice those little details where people write in say sex scenes or something. He didn't write it it wasn't an explicit scene or anything, but implied this happened, but that hasn't happened before really in the books.
Mm-hmm.
In the previous Shannara books, from everything from his prequel books to the main series, he's written about romance, but he hasn't written that the consummation happened or anything. I just kind of noticed that. I'm just like, that seems a little. It just felt like a bit of a cheap addition to the story. It didn't have to be there.
Yeah, I like the way that Tolkien and Lewis Lamore wrote romance.
Mm-hmm.
It's never salacious.
I must admit, I find the more romance part of anything I wrote. Well, Tolkien, he does write good stuff. It's just he writes a different kind of thing. When you're writing more directly about characters, I think when the characters are more directly focused, because Tolkien really doesn't quite do that. His writing style's different from a lot of modern authors. And I think that should be taken into account when you consider how Tolkien writes. It's not that Tolkien writes poorly or anything like the story. He writes very well, and his books are very well paced, and everything, compared to contrary to what some people tend to seem to believe these days. But his books are very well written. It's just
They're stupid.
It's just that stylistically, he is very different from what a lot of people are accustomed to from more modern authors. So, I just find that comparison kind of difficult to make. Not a slight against anyone. It's just, it is what it is. Anyway.
I'm wondering if we should start like a book sharing service where we send each other books. Like, you got to read this.
Unfortunately, I don't have any books to send you, so most of mine are at home in Pennsylvania.
Did you happen to get maybe a digital copy of that Black Tide Rising series?
Oh snap! I haven't yet. Forgot about that. Because we did discuss that. We did discuss that, and I haven't seen it. I haven't heard any of it. Heard about it. Oops. Probably should look into that.
Gosh darn it! I need to get that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I want to read books and paint something.
Anyway, all right. Is that it for the night?
I guess so. Yeah, I didn't show you my shirt. You read this.
I used to be a people person, but people ruined that for me.
Also relevant.
Relevant to me, anyway. I'm tired. It's 2 days of lots of people around. I am tired now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're suffering the introvert hangover.
Not going to discuss the particulars of that either. But anyway, we want to thank you for watching Nerd Rage episode 178. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and a comment down below. Be sure to subscribe for more. Also, check the links in the description below for links to our main page, fullfrontalnerdery.net. Didn't I write something on there recently?
Yes, you did. The thing that we discussed in the last show.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right. See, I'm being thrown off by the fact that it's still the same week that we're recording the show in, and so I'm still thinking it in terms of like, I wrote this for the most recent show. No, I didn't. I wrote it for just before the last show. Anyway, you can also catch us on social media. We are both on Facebook. You can also follow Shannon on Twitter at
Limbus_N_coffee, and I'm on Instagram as Limbus and Coffee as well.
You can also follow me at Osseronphayer, OSCRONPHAER. We hope that you enjoyed this episode. I completely forgot to plug my YouTube channel, but that's fine. The link's in the description below.
I mentioned it earlier in the show.
You did. That wasn't really a plug, though. That was just a random mention.
Whatever. It's pluggish. Plug adjacent.
It just sounds like we're talking about the Dutch Airlines thing about the doesn't matter what your partner pairing is. It's if you click, and it's like only one of those seatbelts click though. Anyway, we want to thank you for watching, and we will catch you next week. Gosh, I'm getting thrown off again because it's the same week. We will catch you next week for more shenanigans, more nerdery, and hopefully North Korea won't EMP us. Until next time, everybody.
Oh. Hopefully we're all still alive.